Okay, everybody, welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to talk around the subject of how to avoid the stress of hybrid cloud migrations and modernization. My name's Nick Westall. I'm CTO for CSI, and I'm responsible for the product strategy, pre-sales, and public cloud teams. And we're here to provide managed services to help accelerate customers with complex demands into their hybrid cloud journey. Today, our guest has started his career researching the effects of power stations on groundwater. Quite unusual. Since then, he's been a developer for KPMG as they became Atos, and over 10 years rose to lead large development teams for them, ultimately becoming their portfolio manager for big data solutions. 7 years ago, he joined Red Hat as a consulting services manager and now leads their UK pre-sales team. Please welcome Matt Roberts.
Thanks very much, Nick. I think anything to do with power stations in this weather is it's suddenly become much more relevant again. But yeah, that's quite a long time ago for me now. But yeah.
It's like you never lose it once you've got it. So just for some housekeeping, we've got the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. So if you click on that, you can ask questions at any time during the webinar, and we thoroughly encourage you to. And we'll come back to those towards the end. Though that said, if we see one or two that are pertinent to what we're speaking about, then we'll bring those forward and go with those. What we found that, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether thinking whether the guests would recognise Red Hat. They obviously know CSI, Nick, because they've joined your webinar. But maybe it's just worth me doing 2 minutes on.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, I hope that most people have heard of Red Hat, but I think they automatically associate us with Linux and the RHEL operating system, but Red Hat's mission has progressed over our 25 years. We became the first $1 billion open source company, and possibly the only one. And our mission now is to help customers as they move on that hybrid cloud journey, and they extend their platforms from not just the data center to the cloud, but also as they move to the edge and they need these lighter weight systems to deploy right out where the action is happening, nearest their customers or partners. So yeah, Red Hat now owned by IBM, a reach in 175 countries. So really interesting company to work for.
So gone from really quite small focus to actually being really quite strong and diverse, and really helping out the making open source tools enterprise ready, I think is maybe the strong.
Right. We talk about being an enterprise software company with an open source development model. And one of the great things about that way of working is the innovation that we can tap into in the communities. And then one of our great strengths is making those projects into enterprise-ready products. Hardening that, testing that, and then making that available for our customers. And it's great to work with partners like yourselves who can take that message and that capability into our customers and help them get the real best out of it.
Splendid. Well, today we're talking about cloud migration journeys and how to make them easy and what the stumbling blocks are. But every company is on a cloud migration journey, or almost everyone. And whether it's to remain competitive, whether it's to take advantage of the scale of the public hyperscalers that are out there, their public cloud platforms, or whether it's to remove the technical debt as they upgrade their environments, there's a good chance that you're already on the journey or you're about to start it. There's a problem though. Modernizing applications and workloads is hard, and it takes more time than you think. And it almost always takes even more time than that. And it's not easy to stretch those systems from your own location, maybe across a private cloud or into the public cloud. So what we'd like to do first is to understand from you is where you're up to and what you think your main problems are. So if we can bring the poll up, that would be fantastic. So if you take a moment just to click on, so where are you on your journey? Are you early on? Are you well on your way? Or are you completely advanced? You're well there. And then equally, what are the main challenges that you're seeing? So you get to choose your top two. So is it skills shortages, increasing automation? Is it modernizing legacy? Is it cost and operational management, or is it the security and regulation that's causing problems? Let's leave that there just for a moment while people take their time.
Yeah, whilst people think about that, Nick, I think Red Hat sort of see that journey to the cloud as there's probably, most companies have been through that exploration of what can they get out of it, moving some of those workloads there. But we sort of see companies thinking about the sort of the foundational aspects of that, starting to automate their environments and get them into this place where they can take advantage of moving to the cloud. So it's starting with perhaps just only at a team level infrastructure as code, or automation just for using runbooks to deploy. Mm-hmm. And then that and through sort of the beginnings of SRE type behaviors. I know we're going to talk a little bit later. During our prep, we were chatting about how important those different roles are and those different skills are. And then Red Hat see people moving into this sort of this cloud progression, beginning to think about how to build apps that are ready for the cloud and to take advantage of that, deploying a more consistent platform, and then moving apps at scale. And then beyond that, the sort of the real cloud native enterprise, that's perhaps where the well-advanced people might be today. And that would, then you're thinking about possibly multiple cloud environments, thinking about managing across those, really thinking about how security and trust works in that kind of environment where it's becoming much more complex. And as a team, you might have to deal with lots of different environments, different challenges, and that cultural change and different ways of working, the new working more closely with the security teams and the line of business than perhaps we would before. So lots of things going on that journey. Really a really interesting and fascinating place to work at the moment in terms of for us and yourselves and the customers.
Perfect. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
I think that's probably filled the space whilst people are thinking about that.
Yeah, they all seem to have hit the buttons now, so that's fantastic. So yeah, there is a huge amount of complexity in organizations' environments, and whether it's been that organic drift of systems over literally decades of being bespoke, particularly if it's like ERP systems, and then there's maybe mergers and acquisitions that have been brought in as well that have just crashed through any sort of target operating environment that have been designed and architected right from the beginning. And then there's the pressure to become efficient, particularly in times like today where there's a recession looming. I say, Matt, the need to modernize this legacy workloads is where most companies start their journey. So what do you think the key is to getting this right?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. And just to pick up on your point there, I don't think that anybody has got this wrong. We're all, when we talk to our customers, we find that they've all ended up where they are for good reasons. So they might have been asked to get out of a data center at short notice. They might have, to your point, the mergers and acquisitions might have brought together two different technology strategies. And so people have now got two clouds, or private cloud, public cloud, and something else. So there's lots of things lots of good reasons why our customers are where they are. There's absolutely, this is not us preaching and telling them that they've got it wrong. One thing I would say is that that often that drive for a move to the cloud and getting the day one benefits of that availability of compute is actually drives the kind of the lift and shift, move before you modernize type of mentality. And I think that one thing that we do see at Red Hat is that, I'm not saying that's the wrong way around. As I said, people move for all sorts of good reasons, but actually, I think in order to get the real benefits, then you have to start to look at those applications and think, which of these are in the right place? Have you got them in the right execution environment? Have you done the piece of modernization that is really going to take advantage of that? And so, so at Red Hat, a lot of those conversations are about, okay, where is the right platform? What is the right platform for this application, and which are the applications that are going to take most advantage of it? And so, so we will often help our customers. Let's talk about the platform first. So the first thing is can you end up with a standardized, secure environment where you are that you can operate effectively? And so one of those things is about thinking about how I was going to jump to OpenShift, but the answer might be any container platform, right? As you look at modernizing your application estate, what are you deploying to? And that container environment is giving you a new way of deploying across dev, test, production in different places, different execution environments. That is a really powerful way of making your development teams become more productive, and that in the end is going to help your business step forward. So that's at the heart of what we're trying to do. With OpenShift, we are attempting to make that platform consistent across private data center and across different cloud execution environments. And so if you are a customer that is thinking about how your business can become more effective through this development piece, OpenShift should allow you to, first of all, to modernize for containers in your data center and move to the cloud. And so that consistency across different environments is one way of helping your developers become more productive. And then I think then you're into the stages of, okay, how do we pick the right applications and make them effective in each execution environment? Now, one of those drivers is to and as with many, we'll talk about refactor, rehost, retire, but that modernization of applications, that is the thing that's going to allow you to take advantage of that agility. The ability to deploy more frequently comes through that modernization process. And so Red Hat, and I know that you and I chatted beforehand, CSI are doing similar things about identifying which are the right applications and moving them into and helping our customer teams modernize those. Just trying to think whether there's anything else that I wanted to touch on around modern legacy. Perhaps it's a way of giving it back to you, Nick, and sort of one of the challenges if you don't go through that process, as I said, was that actually you end up with more monolithic applications that are running all the time in the cloud, and that's actually costing you more money in the long run, and you're not taking advantage of the agility. So perhaps it's just worth us moving the conversation towards cost and cost management, because that's one of the big drivers that lets you tap into the time to make that modernization happen.
Oh yeah, I think it's one of the greatest fears that most organizations have, is that how much is it going to cost when you get there? There's been maybe the error of lift and shift, where people have just taken what they've got, pushed it straight up into a public hyperscaler, not really right-sized it or right-shaped it, gone through any real consideration about how it was going to be modernized or operated when it landed in a public hyperscaler. So it could be Azure, it could be AWS, wherever. And suddenly the monthly bill comes through and it's got lots of extra zeros on the end. And suddenly everyone panics, and quite often it get repatriated as well. In fact, the rate of repatriation that we've seen, it was in an article that was released a few days ago, we can see that actually repatriation is increasing, and actually over in the US it's increasing at a faster rate. The UK and Europe seem to be catching up, and really it's the problem is that people don't have that plan for modernization, and they don't have the plan for how are they going to manage their costs and how actually they're going to fund their modernization. And then equally, when they actually have this distributed environment where you've got the right workload in the right location, whether it's going to be the back end of your ERP system that's massively monolithic and it's got really high volume batch processing going through large volumes of data, which is really with really heavy processing that actually you'd never put it up in the cloud. Or whether it's the front end for the apps that are driving it, maybe it's your banking app that's on your phone, and that's going to be driven straight out of public hyperscaler. Being able to get these to work in concert and to actually go through and decide what's going to go where and how it should be, you really do need to plan for modernization. And that's really sort of know where you're going before you start. And so I would be a great proponent of modernizing first and really nailing down what that plan is going to be. And there's a lot of analytics and analysis that you can go through before you actually do anything. Understand where you are and understand and develop what your target operating model is actually going to be. And that way you can understand where's your cost where you are today, and what's the cost going to be as you get there and in the interim, and equally how you're actually going to operate it, because quite often you're doing this in an environment where there are new things that you're going to do that you've never done before, and you're either going to need some assistance to do that, or you're going to need to scale up to the people that you've already got. But one of the things that we found from the analysis is typically there's 3 different types of workloads. There are those workloads that when you look at it are actually just right for moving. In fact, it would have been cheaper and they would go faster if you just move them already. And you can just literally, you can do the lift and shift. And typically these are very light workloads, and they're just providing discrete services. So it's very easy to put them up into a public cloud environment. You've then got the stuff I mentioned at the bottom, those big, large ERP systems that are maybe you've been bespoking the heck out of for the last 30, 40 years. And it's going to take more than 5 minutes actually to sort of refactor them or even get vaguely close to what the functionality is going to be. And those heavy workloads, they're likely to actually stay down in a data center or a private cloud provider to allow that to happen, because you're just going to be adding all of those zeros on if you just lift and shift it. You've then got that chunk in the middle that needs some level of refactoring, rehosting, or it's a new target location. Maybe it's going to go into a SaaS, or maybe it's going to be rewritten to take advantage of the public hyperscaler platforms, and containerization is the most efficient and effective way to use public cloud, and it's priced and it's built to be that way. But what we found is that when people look at this mid-size workloads and maybe some of the smaller ones, and it's not just how heavy they are in terms of the compute and the storage, the IOPS that they need. It's also the dependencies that they have around them. You can find something that looks as if it should be really easy to just drag and drop, but then you find it's got 10, 12 different dependencies around it that are actually quite heavy, and each of them are going to require consideration, modernization, planning out. And it's planning out how you're going to move and migrate those dependencies as you stretch your environment across maybe 2, 3, 4 different locations. Most organizations as a minimum are using 2.3 clouds on average. If you then start including like SaaS providers and what have you, actually that usually goes up to 11, sometimes up to 15, particularly for large organizations. But yeah, it rapidly gets to the point where what you're running becomes beyond your own scale. And it doesn't matter whether you're a large organization with thousands and thousands of employees, or whether you've just got a couple of hundred or somewhere slidey scale somewhere in the middle. You're going to get to the point where it's beyond your capability, either because you don't have the volume of people in to help you, you don't have the skills for the new platforms and to actually manage that volume of change that you're going through. So it really is that going through a modernization journey takes a village, and it's rare that you're going to be able to do that just as your own organization. But there's a big problem with all of this, the joys of lifting and shifting, or modernization and refactoring, and going into containerization and platforms like OpenShift to orchestrate that, is the other elephant that's in the room, and particularly for those organizations that are under regulatory control. and there's the constant threat of being hacked as well, particularly as you go through a massive amount of change. So yeah, security and regulation. How can we handle it, Matt? What can we do?
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point that when we talk to our customers, that they've all got security right up there as one of their biggest topics on their agenda. It's one of the biggest points for investment each year for IT teams, and that's come up year after year on the Gartner surveys. So we know it's consistent. Red Hat's view of security, particularly for the application world, and is that it should be that this is something that you can't address right at the end of the life cycle. We've moved from the classic sort of perimeter-based security of sort of 5-7 years ago to a world where actually it needs to be more focused on the applications alongside the platform and more modern ways of tackling this with containers and Kubernetes. So our view is that you need to think about it across the whole life cycle. It's a continuous and holistic process through understanding those requirements and designing them in, building them into the platform, running it on a trusted platform that you know that you're pulling secure build images, and then continually managing and automating that process so that you're not introducing errors through sort of human touch or mistakes. So increasing automation, and then through to continually adapting. So across the whole of the application lifecycle and the platform lifecycle, you need to be thinking about security. So if you like, we're going even bigger on shift left at Red Hat. We believe that absolutely security should be thought about all the way through. And I would say that you know that OpenShift gives you some of those capabilities. You know, Nick, we talked about DevOps and DevSecOps. You know, OpenShift is there to help the platform and development teams take advantage of that. You know, we think in the build part of that, we're thinking about how containers and Kubernetes are based on this ecosystem catalog, things that Red Hat have tried and tested and certified against standards like CIS, or you know, PCI or other certification standards. Then and we're testing, checking for vulnerabilities, fixing those at the back end. So we're helping your platform teams to create that solid, secure base. Then we're thinking about during deploy, we're bringing in opinionated, hardened Kubernetes images so your containers are solid. We're also supporting those CI/CD pipelines and checking the build images so that you don't get log4j type stresses that that many customers went through last year. And we're thinking about deployment policies, about where things are being placed, and helping our customers with classics like compliance as code, and trying to think about how the security teams get their policies implemented on an ongoing automated basis. And then finally at runtime, you know, how can we we're thinking about how those containers are built on a very secure base. We talk about using SE Linux as the container OS images, which control access points. So as a technical team, you're thinking about application access. You're thinking about how different containers talk to each other, how different apps running in those containers talk to each other. And OpenShift across all of that is helping our customers to support dev teams in providing that secure world. And you know, that's super. If you can kind of abstract that away from the dev teams, because from a dev team point of view, you're kind of like, great, that's one less thing to think about. If I can fixate on building the business logic that I need, then OpenShift could support me in giving me a lot of this for free, you know, it contained within the platform. And I guess, you know, when you're up there and running, then you've got to think about how you then move to continually updating and continually pulling that forward, that sort of that adaptability piece. I just wanted to sort of touch on the fact on top of the platform level, there's the opportunity to think about how you get visibility of images or CVEs or looking at threats. And so Red Hat has a product that sits there, ACS, Advanced Container Security, that sort of would compete or fit alongside things from Palo Alto or Sysdig. All of these tools give you some of that visibility about what's going on your platform, what's running where are we introducing any vulnerabilities, and how quickly can we pull through a new build with an automated image that we can then deploy without and effectively replace a running application successfully without touching all of those things, and bring that through with automation. So lots there that Red Hat can do in order to help the dev teams and the platform teams to meet the security standards that they're looking for. But I guess, you know, each customer we work with has a different appetite for risk, and some will be looking at how fast can we deploy things because that's the business value that we're trying to tackle. Others will be thinking about how they introduce compliance stages across that life cycle. So it's a really interesting conversation to get involved in. I think we've both sort of seen different views of that depending on the regulatory environments and perhaps the verticals of the customers that we're talking to.
Yeah, I think there are those that just want to get going. They hit the button, let's drag and drop, let's go. It's going to be wonderful. But yeah, I think it's great to have the enthusiasm, but one of the things I really like about systems like OpenShift and what have you, and one of the reasons we partner so closely with Red Hat, is that actually you're completely location and platform agnostic, and having the ability to not only have clusters in many different locations, whether it's going to be the obvious ones, the public hyperscalers, or whether it's going to be in a private cloud, whether it's going to be on x86 and VMware environments, whether it's actually sort of raw tin or whether it's on a hypervisor, or indeed whether it's IBM Power, particularly maybe for those financial services and pharmaceutical customers that are out there that are really driving those workloads. It just means you've just got a consistent base to run your operations, and you can get a single pane of glass that allow you to actually monitor and manage and see it, and then to have it secure by default from the ground up. Again, it just makes it easy to go through those first steps, that you can put the foundations in place and know that actually the first layer and many of the layers above of your security policy and approach have actually come to fruition already.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because I think as you get to as we go, if I backtrack 15 minutes and we think about those different clouds that our customers are having to deal with, that ability to be able to see across the various different Kubernetes deployment options and then be able to manage across those is one of the things that Red Hat has really kind of recognized, and we're now starting to become agnostic. So ACM and ACS start to work across clouds, across XKS kind of worlds, which again helps the operations teams to get a real handle on where this execution is happening and what kind of challenges they might be dealing with.
But yeah, I mean, and it's great once we've got a firm foundation. It's then how are you going to do it efficiently and effectively? And at that point, we found people that just go for the lift and shift, or the error of lift and shift, as it was pointed out to me the other day, is that you're just taking your legacy problems that you've been building in and evolving with all of its faults, into a new location. And actually, if you can make sure that you've got that level of automation in there, that you can take advantage of some of the functionality that's available across your foundation, across OpenShift, or indeed the using tools like Ansible, maybe Terraform, to help in your deployments to make sure that you've got that consistency, whether it's within containers or without. It just means that you can build in that reliability. You mentioned SRE before, site reliability engineers, that how do you build it on the understanding it's going to die? It's not if it's going to die, it's when. Something will go wrong. I mean, your public hyperscalers always warn you that you need to build everything in a resilient fashion, because they could just pull the rug out from underneath you at any given moment. And actually, there are power failures in private data centers and in large office locations where they've got their own data centers. So there's only so far that you can go. And being able to build in that level of automation, so that if someone, it doesn't matter what the failure mode is, which bit of the rug gets pulled out, that actually your environment will just bounce back naturally. And obviously OpenShift's got a lot of functionality in there to assist with that, and to stop that any technical drift that may be brought in, whether it was through a bad actor or whether it's through someone making a manual change. But you rapidly, the need for automation is that you're going to get beyond your own scale as an organization really quite quickly. And actually, if you're modernizing and rewriting, or maybe even rehosting and taking advantage of all of the functionality of the platform services that you get within the public hyperscalers, there's a good chance that your volume of virtual machines is going to grow massively, particularly if you're going into a containerized managed environment that can scale out and back again quite dramatically. And the ability to actually just make sure that that's within your control, whether it's going to be cost, whether it's your application performance, you need to make sure that that banking app is or that retail app is going to work on, whether it's Black Friday. At the moment, run up to Christmas, there's more 20% of the whole purchase goes through in these couple of weekends for the whole year. And then everyone's using their banking apps. How much have we spent already? Are we being paid before Christmas? So, but not only is the operational ability to whether you can control that, being able to use tools with an AI content that are in there, that actually they can see how your operation's working, have those guardrails, and understand where it should be working and what it should be doing, and the optimal performance that needs to be achieved, and actually being able to pull those levers around the resource and drive out the bottlenecks from within your environment. And it just means that you can focus on, have the confidence that the environment is running, and actually have a smaller team. And being able to build up those DevOps teams, those automation teams, means that quite often you can have, instead of maybe 15 people driving 1,000 VMs, you can maybe get away with 2 or 3. And you can take those people and use them to focus on other things. But not only in operations, it's the security as well. It's now a question of when you're going to get hacked, not if, which pitches back to the security by default. And you need tools and a layered approach in place that's going to automatically protect you, whether it's dealing with that zero-day threat, or whether it's understanding the change, however subtle it's been within your operating environment, that actually means that someone actually has breached, and that they're trying to move around, and that they're trying to actually gain that access and work through the kill chain. And more often than not, these bad actors behind your firewall for over 200 days before they actually pull the trigger. And more often than not now, it's not that they're going to hold you to ransom around your operation. They will have exfiltrated your data already. So actually you've got a double threat, and they can come back, and even if you do manage to expunge them from your environment, they can then hold you to ransom off the back of the fact that they're going to release your data. But yeah, so there's a problem there in terms of operating on that scale. So there's AI that can help you to do it, building your tool environment, being proactive in the way in which you've automated up front. But equally, all of this requires new skills. More often than not, organizations aren't doing this where they are today. So it is a big step going forward. So it really is being able to focus on the modernization process and accelerate that, and maybe bring in assistance and third parties to help you go through that rapidly.
Yeah, that's a great summary. I was just thinking that there's an awful lot there that we've covered, and but actually, often there's small steps that each of our customers are taking that's getting them along that journey, Nick, and so whether that is building out the platform, or whether that's bringing the first applications on, or bringing that second tier of applications on that require modernization, and then working to understand the capabilities of the platform. All of that builds new skills in the customer organization, which they can take forwards with. And I think that, we've chatted about trying to drive those skills into the customer teams, helping them through those early phases in order to make them successful, but then giving them those skills. And you're absolutely right that these teams should be thinking about how they repurpose those skills that they've got, from the sort of the more traditional sysadmin skills into automation skills, managing that perhaps through Ansible automation platform. You're absolutely right. That plays really nicely with Terraform in one dealing with infrastructure as code and one dealing with configuration drift and these kind of big challenges. And so there's both changes of skills for ops teams who are working more closely in a kind of an SRE or DevOps type model, and there's changes of skills for dev teams as they think about how they build, or modernize applications to take advantage of the cloud. So lots of things going on. I think one of the positives is that I think that most technical teams in general are very used to change, and therefore they really kind of embrace this kind of world. It's just getting them the sort of the support and the coaching that they need to get them started, and possibly just showing them the way with those first applications or first platform builds.
Yeah, and helping them learn and take on the new knowledge and the new skills themselves. So it's almost see one, do one, teach one. It's enabling those customers so that they do become self-sufficient, but equally there's always going to be more to do, and it's a rapidly changing environment. So yeah, so today we've spoken about modernization legacy, cost and operational management, security and the regulation, increased automation, and also that skills shortage that we touched on. So maybe let's have a quick look at those poll results again. I think they popped up right at the beginning, but let's have a quick look as well and just see. So it looks like pretty much everybody's already on their way. Skills shortage, yes, definitely one that's, and security seem to be right at the top of the list in terms of what are the problems that people are actually seeing and experiencing. Well, I can see that we're actually right up against our time at the moment. So what we will do is we will any questions that we've got through on the Q&A, we will answer, and we'll send those out to all of the attendees. Please do feel free to send us any other questions or queries that you might have, and you can see that our contact details are up on the screen now. And yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn as well as on those email addresses. So feel free to reach out, and we're happy to have a chat with you. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks for inviting me, Nick. Cheers.